All right, so we're starting from scratch.
Start from scratch.
Okay.
Okay, in talking about the sales comparison approach, if you'd like to see what a relatively difficult test question having to do with the sales comparison approach looks like, look at the one that I sent to you for your practice. Here's the way it goes. An appraiser is evaluating a subject property with 1,500 square feet. Okay, I start setting up my grid, my chart, my organization, whatever you choose to call it. The subject property has 1,500 square feet. Why? Because the problem said it had 1,500 square feet. It has 2 baths, it has a fireplace, and it has a 1-car garage. Okay? Now, as you continue with the next sentence, it says he has located a comp that sold for 160, a comparable property. So let's say the comparable property sold for 160. We know that because it's a closed sale, and obviously in this case it's given to you in the problem. The comp contains 1,550 square feet. Okay. The comp has 1.5 baths. I will tell you at the end of the day that the baths are probably the thing that most students find most tricky. So I'm going to put a little star beside that and we'll talk about it in just a moment. It has a fireplace but no garage. Okay? Sometimes I learn things from students, and I had a student a while back who told me that because the inferior-superior thing kind of confused him when he was doing it in a hurry, he said what he tried to do was he would just take his grid and then he would take it, he'd put the pluses and minuses in place, and then he'd go back and figure the math. Let's try that and see how it works. If I do that, I see that the comp is superior to the subject property, and if it's superior, we're going to subtract. I'm just going to put a minus sign there. In regards to the baths are clearly inferior. 1.5 is inferior to 2 baths. So if it's inferior, we're going to increase or add to its value. The fireplace is a wash. Notice that they're both the same, so no adjustment necessary. And then on the comparable property, no garage is clearly inferior to the subject property, which has a garage. So if it's inferior, we're going to increase its value. Now, at this point, we've got our grid set up. So we go and take a look at the problem and see what assumptions do we have in this problem. So assuming that construction costs are $50 per square foot, again, given to you in the problem, don't necessarily take that in the field. It will be different in different locations. But in this case, I need you to adjust for the difference between the comparable property and the subject property. So what's the difference between 1,550 and 1,500? It's only 50 square feet. So 50 square feet times $50 per square feet is going to be $2,500. So there's our adjustment for square footage. Remember, you're only adjusting the differences. Now, I told you there was a trick when you're dealing with the baths. So I want you to notice that the subject property has 2 baths. The comparable property has 1.5 baths. If you were to look at your setup, you see that a full bath has $2,500 in value and a half bath has $1,500 in value. You might be tempted to say, what's a half bath different? So it's $1,500 different. But that's not the way you solve baths. The way you do is you create value first and then you subtract the difference. So for example, given our setup, in 2 baths, there's 2 times $2,500, which would be $5,000 worth of value. It's a $5,000 worth of value in 2 baths. In 1.5 baths, it would be $2,500 plus $1,500, which would be $4,000 in value. Now watch what happens here. 5,000 minus 4,000 is only $1,000. So if you had grabbed 1,500 and just plugged it in there, you would have been off by $500 and thought that you were correct. Okay? So make a star beside that. Please ask me questions about that if it confuses you, because once you get it once, you've got it. Okay? In regards to the garages, we're given again that a single garage is worth $7,000. So I just plug that into place. So I've got a good looking grid going on here. I've got a good looking relationship between the subject and the comp. However, I'm not finished. Remember, one of the keys in math, you always read the whole problem. So as I continue reading the problem, the last line says this. The appraiser notes, I need you to read this super closely here. The appraiser notes that properties in the area have appreciated 2% since the time of sale. Now that's not 2% per year, it's 2% since that property right there sold. When it sold for 160, apparently since that time, it would have increased in value by 2% if it were on the market today. So literally all we're looking for here is 160,000 times 2% is going to be $3,200. And do you remember, appreciation is always a plus adjustment. So now we have appreciation, $3,200. Appreciation. Now just follow your signs. 160 minus 2,500 plus 1,000 plus 7,000 plus 3,200. Let's see, I'm going to do it in my head, Lisa, while you're doing it on the calculator. 157.5, 158.5, 165.5, 168.7, 168,700 is your answer. Now, what did we learn from this? Based on that comp, this is what we believe the perceived value of the subject property. I don't know what the property is going to sell for, but this is our basis for determining that the subject property should be worth somewhere around 168.7. And again, for real estate agents, we don't say what properties are worth, we say probable sale price. A probable sale price would be somewhere around 168.7.